We have Junaid, founder of Humblezone and creator of Home Studio Mastery. Sorry, stumbling with my words. Has 2 decades of video production experience and expertise in web and app design. He offers podcaster speakers, content creators, comprehensive plans for studio equipment, lighting, and layout, enabling effortless content creation in home studios. He authored Mastering iPhone Video Production and hosts the Hacks and Hobbies podcast, frequently speaking at events like Podfest and virtual summits. Junaid, you have helped countless people transform their home studios. And I want to know, like, when you're helping these people out, like, what's the first thing that you look at? What's the first thing that pops out for you when you're looking at their studio and you want to transform it?
Said, well, number one, I am super excited to be here. Thank you so much for that beautiful intro.
Well,
And
thank you for coming.
the first thing that I look for in is, even if they send me a photo or a video, I can tell you exactly what's going on. Like I'll tell you, okay, the lighting is coming from this direction. It needs to come from this other direction. You're using overhead light. You have more light on this side. You have different color.
Okay, how to make your space more utilizable. Utilize,
That's a
you
new
know,
word for me, bro.
you can utilize it more.
Yeah, you want to make sure that your space is well organized so that you can do multiple things in it. Like I have kids, I have 4 kids, right? So they're in my office all the time, running in between recordings and whatnot. So I have things for them to play with in the background. I even have a swing hanging from up there, so don't just hang out. You can do that. But again, you want to make the place so it's efficient and it work is designed to work with your workflow. Like lot of the times I've seen people are sitting in the middle of the room because they want the wall in that shot, right? And and that's basically because most of the cameras have really wide angles.
Hmm.
And what do you do with that wide angle? Well, you got to be close to the wall. And when with the bad lighting, you're sometimes not lit up correctly. So what I do is like, hey, let's first work the room so that you can utilize it for more uses than one. For example, I set up my desk all the way
Whoa.
at the end of this
What the hell
room,
just happened, bro?
and then towards the back, I have the bookshelf, and that's why you see
Oh
it's
my
so
god.
blurred because it's the activity or it's the functionality of the lens that you use and how you set it up,
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
right?
To be honest, when you switched cameras, I thought it looked like as if you were either at NASA or driving the Mars rover. I don't know.
That's the idea, right? Because it's again, you're showing up with confidence, you're showing up with professionalism, you're showing up
Mhm.
as somebody who cares about the person on the other side. And when you do that, then you're seen with more authority, or you're respected more. At least in my opinion. And
um,
then,
yes,
go ahead.
Junaid, can I ask you a question
Of
about?
course, please.
So, what's the benefit practically of having that camera be behind you when
Well,
showing us your setup?
because I teach this subject,
Mm.
I have the camera behind me, right? Most of the times I'll have a guest have, or so, multiple cameras, one on the side, one on this side, so that way you can switch between the two cameras when you're
Hmm.
doing educational video, educational content. For example, if I had a whiteboard over here, I could switch the camera, go over to the whiteboard, write something in, and then
Mm.
now
Yeah.
they're kind of getting the experience that you get when you're watching television, when you're watching movies. If you want
Wow.
to give that higher quality content, again, it builds your authority and it also gives you confidence when you look this good, right? Anytime I'll be gone for vacation and I come back, I turn the camera on, I'm like, wow, I look good.
That's important. It's important to be
It
looking good.
absolutely is, yeah.
And to compliment yourself as well. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know,
Because
positive
here's the
reinforcement.
thing, right? When we're meeting people in person, you don't see yourself. We just see the other
Yeah.
person, and you don't see this camera reflection of yourself. But did you know that when 2020 had the most visits to plastic surgeons ever
Wow.
since the in more than the last decade, because a lot
Really?
more people are looking at themselves on Zoom calls, on Google Hangouts, on Teams. Like everybody's looking at themselves, and they don't realize that all they need to do is better lighting, and that's going to solve their problem. They don't need to go get liposuction or Botox or whatever. Yeah,
That's
It's
incredible.
just it's all about the camera angles and the lighting. So speaking of those, what do you think for example, our studios, our home studios, how can we improve? Just maybe one tip for each of us. What can we change?
of course. So let me see if I could do full screen for. There we go. I got full screen for
Nice.
Ali.
Let's go.
So you are basically sitting in a corner of a room because I
That's
see
right.
two convergence of the walls. You have
Hmm.
a window that's also coming into the shot. So you
Yes.
want to use that window as something that lights you up as opposed to being in the shot. So again, utilize that natural lighting to better shine on you. The other thing is you have a yellow lamp behind you. Now it's a
Yes.
good accent lighting,
Hmm.
but again, it might distract sometimes. I don't know. I
All right.
mean, you can play around with different things, so that would be great. Number two, you have a really amazing microphone,
Oh, thank you.
and it needs to be closer to your mouth.
Okay. I don't
Or
worry. Yes, I'll find a good, better place for it.
yeah. So again, so what that does? Did you just?
It's all breaking apart.
Oh my goodness. And what I see is that you're using a desktop stand, which is sitting on top of a desktop. What you can do is there are stands that mount to your desk
Hmm.
that will make sure that the microphone is always in the same place no matter what. Because, for example, let me show you. I can put my microphone away, and now I'm free. Of course, you can't hear me when my microphone is away. But again,
Right.
that's the idea behind when
That's a smart idea, especially because it's a
you
desk.
mount it in this place.
Man, you have the good ideas. And also, I'm standing on this thing over here too. It's a little balance beam over here
So
too.
you're balancing while we're having this conversation. You try to hit kill two birds with one stone. That's very very awesome. You're being very efficient with your time, I think.
We got a balance. It helps me focus.
Hmm.
Thanks,
And then,
Junaid.
of course, you're welcome. So for Saeed, let me full screen you. Um, I like the bookshelves. They're very creative. They're open. They kind of give you that 3D effect. But if there was more of a balance in that shot, like maybe add something else, or maybe move a little further away from that wall and do a little better lighting. So because looks like you probably are using an overhead light because I can see that sharp shadow um, on your neck. So that's a little better. But again, that shadow, see, there's a shadow on you, and that's because you have the overhead light still turned on. So that's the overhead light that's casting that shadow. So again, how do you break that shadow? Well, you turn off the overhead lights. Let me show you what my overhead lights look like, right? Because if I were to just come in my office and then just do work, this is what my lights look like, and it's failing now, of course. Wi-Fi is acting up. Great. Usually I have all these lights connected to my system so that I can easily turn them on and off. But usually my lights are overhead and everything is turned off, so you just see one lighting without any color background lights. This would be really cool to show off. But sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
That's how you play the game. All right, Said. Yeah, and um, Said's come a long way. What's happening, Said? Why do I have to refresh your page? I'm gonna sneak.
Well, the
Try again.
browser is going to continue recording, so we could still keep going because
Mm-hmm.
it'll still have the recording at the end of the session, and that's the power of Riverside.
Said, are you recording though? Okay, refresh. I'm not gonna stop, but you refresh.
Because it still says recording on my end. Maybe.
Yep, and same for me. But Said, I don't know why. Technical difficulties, as we've come to see, happens all the time, no matter how prepared you can be. So, what's the what's the difference between a hobby and a career? I know you do have a lot of hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
Like you like to take care of bees.
That was one of the hobbies that got me started into podcasting. That's for sure. I'm not taking care of bees right now, but it was a journey that I took on to get here. So the difference between a career and a hobby, well, a hobby is something that you do out of passion for yourself. And a career is you do something could be out of passion for somebody else and maybe also yourself. I don't know.
What's the difference for you?
For me, well, my career for the past 20 years, I've been developing websites and enterprise applications using my skills as a user experience designer. So I've been a designer through and through. And so before I was designing flyers, then I was designing web pages, and then I was designing mobile apps, then I was designing enterprise applications, and now I'm designing studios. So it's an evolution over time. So that's been my career, but my passion has always been photography and filmmaking,
Mm.
right? So when the pandemic hit, luckily I found a job that was 100%, that was like, hey, it actually started me a month before the pandemic required everybody to work from home. So I was already working from home. And because I was home, I was like, hey, let me put my studio together because I wanted to create courses, I wanted to create YouTube content. And as I was going on this journey, I was like, I can use all the tech knowledge that I have around video and film production into putting my stage together, essentially. So that's been my little journey. And as I went to set up my space, not myspace.com, but as I set up my little space and studio, right? Like, what? You're setting my space in 2022, 2020. Uh, right? It's a little late to the party. So as I'm setting it up, and I'm also, attending these Zoom calls on a daily basis because I'm in different communities of podcasting communities. People started noticing my camera quality, my video quality changing and getting better and better. They start asking me, like, dude, what are you doing? Why is your camera look so good? Like, what did you do? What kind of camera are you using? I'm like, well, I'm using this camera, I'm using this lighting. And they're like, well, I went and bought that camera. I don't look the same like you do. Like, well, you gotta work the room. You gotta make, you gotta work the lighting. So it took me a while to, really get it to where I want the space to be. And as I did that, people started asking me, and I started consulting them. And then I launched the company Home Studio Mastery. So let's
Wow,
say, yeah,
it happened organically that way.
yeah.
That's really cool. Now, what you consider, what I'm trying to get at is, can you have multiple careers in one life, or do you have one main career, and the rest is just different hobbies that you do to
Hmm.
fulfill yourself? Like, what is it? What's the line? That's what we're trying to discuss here in this
I don't think
conversation.
there is a line though.
Mm.
I don't think there's a line because human beings, we evolve, right? We grow out of one thing into the other. Like my son, who is 1 year old, he didn't know how to walk. He's like, is that his career? No, he continued to learn how to walk because now he's walking, he's running, and he's 2 years old now. So we go through different phases. So just like he grew in 2 years, I'm gonna grow in 2 years. So our brains are continually growing. I think it was a podcast I listened to. Is the Ron Burgundy podcast,
Mm.
and he brings in this neuroscientist or neural. He's literally a brain scientist, and it's like, oh my god, we got literal brain scientists here, and he's talking about how our brains create 1,700 new cells every single day. There's new brain cells being born. So where do they go? Well, if you're not learning anything, they're going to go to die. But if you're learning in different subjects along the way, those brain cells are going to go to different areas of our brain. They did a research on these taxi drivers in London. So in London, to be certified as a taxi driver, you have to learn the street names and everything. You cannot use GPS, right? So um, they scan the brains of somebody who's been driving for 10 years versus somebody who's driving for, you know, a few years. And they saw one part of the brain really huge. And that's a part of the brain that's responsible for navigation. So it all comes down to, hey, what really makes you happy, what makes you excited, and that's where you go after. So I don't think there's a limit. I mean, you can have as many careers as you want. In fact, one of the guests that came on my podcast, Hacks and Hobbies, Joseph Stetter, he's had 9 different careers
Wow.
in his lifetime. So you want to start there at least, at the least, right? So when you start at one career, you get really good at that. Now you can move on and add on additional things to that. For example, when you're learning how to drive a car, you just got to focus on the road and handle the steering. But once you're a good driver, you can play music, you can turn the wipers on. Actually, I had a huge problem when the wipers were installed at the car. Like, people are gonna crash. There's things going in front of their windows. So there's a lot of different things that you can add on to your career, and you can continue to grow even within that career. Sometimes you might get bored, and that's why we watch television and you try to entertain our minds. But if you put that extra time that you have into something more viable or more valuable or more uplifting, then you're now growing in one more than one places.
Yes. And so how does that fulfill your soul? I'm curious, when you do your podcast,
Mhm.
what for you is the main motivation to continue doing your podcast after all these hundreds of episodes that you've done?
See, I'm I didn't know this, but I'm essentially writing a book, and it's called the How Analogy. Now, this is a book name that somebody gave me
Mm.
because every single episode on my podcast starts with how to, because I am very curious on how something works. So being able to talk to so many people in so many different genres or so many different areas, I'm able to understand, hey, this is the path. Like, literally every single person goes down this path. Everybody's going to have success if they continue down that path and do these little things. And it's no different than somebody like um, Steph Curry or Michael Jordan. How did they get so good at what they do or what they did? Michael Jordan
How?
was an excellent, basketball player. Well, how did he do that? Well, he practiced a lot,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how many times he failed. And then he tried to switch and go into baseball. Well, that didn't kind of work. But then he was like, well, I want to get good at business. So he started talking to people around him that were business owners so that he can learn from them. I think
Yeah.
Magic Johnson was another example. He failed at business at the beginning, but when you keep going down that path, guess what? You're gonna learn what you don't know, and you're going to get better at it, and then you keep growing, because as human beings we're constantly evolving. We have new cells in our body being grown. So again, you want to give them a place to be as opposed to dying. Does that answer the question? Am I going too roundabout?
Yes. So, oh no.
I'm going too roundabout. Okay, so what's it?
Yes, that helps answer the question. But I'm curious. So, you've talked to so many people, and you said there's a common road path, and like you kind of described it in repetition, 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 failure, learning from your failures, success. Is
Yeah,
that it? Is that the one thing everyone has in common?
that's it. But because you feel like it's repetition, you're going round and round. But if you look at from another perspective, you're going round and round, but you're going up. You're doing
Tornado.
better. It's a tornado. It's like going upwards, right? You're being pulled into
I
a
like
better
that.
place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you see anybody's journey, so for example, I was talking to uh, somebody earlier today. He's a Muslim business owner. He's trying to promote this Sabili platform for Muslims, like organizations and creators and whatnot. And he's like, I want to start a podcast like the Diary of the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, let's take a look at uh, I'm forgetting his name. Let's take a look at Stephen Bartlett. That's his name, right? So he's
Yeah,
like,
that's
let's
true.
take a look at his journey. Where did he come from? What enabled him to get to the space that he's in? Well, he
Hmm.
he was born in Botswana in South Africa, and he's the youngest of four kids. His dad was a structural engineer. They moved to UK, and he went to school there. Well, he's trying to fit in, but I think it's sixth grade he was kicked out of school.
Yeah.
And then at age 18, he left home. He's like, you know what? I give up. So he goes to college, and he's even actually, he went to college, and after his first class, he's like, you know what? This is not for me. He quit. And then he was just living on the streets. I'm like, what the heck's going on? Like, this guy's just living on the streets, and he's trying to figure out, what can I do? So he launched some company called Wall Park, a place where other students or other people can hang out and understand what's going on. Then he discovered something else, and as he's surrounding himself with successful people, understanding what they're doing, he was able to implement and launch companies and become successful. And then in fact, he was the youngest person to be in Dragon's Den, which is similar to Shark Tank at UK. So
Yeah.
that's what enabled him to be where he is right now. If you look at his YouTube channel with 6.5 million subscribers, I think the first video was posted 3 years ago, and it says episode 53, because the 52 episodes prior to that were all audio based. Now, he was already doing the work. He found success. He had people investing in his companies, but he kept going down that route because he knew there's something more. And the beautiful part about the time that we're living in right now, oh my God, there's so many tools and opportunities in every corner. It's mind blowing. The question is, how far are you willing to take it? And that's why I bring in people from all walks of life, because I want to learn every single thing that they're doing to see how they got to where they are,
Hmm.
right? And then the more you learn from people who are successful, guess what happens? In Islam, it says you are the average of the five people that you're around with.
Mm-hmm.
And if these five
Yes, that's so
people
true.
are smoking, or if these five people are, working a day job, or if these five people are doing something less, you're going to be the average of all of these. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reach out to these 7-figure, 6-figure, 8-figure people. Like, hey, come talk to me, because I want to be influenced by you. I want to learn. I want you to rub off on me. I want to get some of that success.
Mm.
And then the beautiful, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but the first four letters of the word success
Sucks.
is suck. So you're going to suck before you get to
Oh.
success. Or the first three letters. Yeah.
You're
Right?
building up to success.
You're
You have to go
building
through
up to
the suck.
success. Yes.
And then it's
Yeah.
gonna be sucksy, and then it's gonna be success.
Yes.
I like
So
that one.
Junaid, I would like to know. So you mentioned that surrounding yourself with these five people who can get you to that level of success, but these people are usually on a like a different level than you are. So how do you convince them? How do you persuade these people to accept you, like to actually spend time with you?
Well, Saeed, here's the beautiful part, right? People who are at that level, they are so open. They just want you to ask them questions like, "Hey, how can I help you?" Right?
Mm,
They want to help. I mean, if you look at the hadith,
Mm-hmm.
right?
yeah.
All the sahabas, they're asking the prophet. He's so much higher level, but they are still asking him questions. They're hanging out with him. They're listening, and that's what they're gaining from him. So
Mm,
be in the be in the areas where you'll find people that are giving that information. And if you just go up and ask a question, they'll give you their time to answer your questions because they want to see you succeed. You know how people say it's lonely at the top? It's
yeah.
not. It's not lonely at the top. The only reason people say that is because they don't want to do the work to go to the top.
Mm.
Everybody just wants to be airlifted to the top of the mountain, but you have to do
Yeah.
the work to get up there.
Okay.
That
So
answer your
just ask
question,
questions
Saeed.
then. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, so what? Speaking on the point of questions, and I'm assuming you at one point put yourself in that situation where you asked those questions. What what was the first question that you asked the individual that you think influenced you the most, or your first mentor?
Well, I think my first mentor was a book by Gary Vaynerchuk, right? So I read his books, and he told me just document your journey. I mean, that was the
Mm,
last thing he said in the book.
yeah.
Another mentor of mine was this guy. He's saying, I was for 6 months I was watching videos on YouTube all around beekeeping,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And the last video I watched, the guy's like, "Hey, if you really want to be a beekeeper, you need to go join a beekeepers association." And there's local beekeepers association literally everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I found one in Virginia. And I was like, I'm going to hang out with them. When I went to them, like, "Hey, welcome. We're so excited for you to be here. We're going to be starting a course in January. Do you want to join? We're going to teach you everything you need to know." I was like, "Yes, I do." So I jumped in. I learned from them how to become a beekeeper. When I was starting my podcasting, I started researching like, well, how do you start a podcast? What do you need to do? And luckily there was an app called
Mm-hmm.
Anchor.fm that enabled you to do a podcast from your phone. And that's how I started my podcast. It was on my phone. The first entire season it was recorded on my phone in my car commuting back and forth from work. So you just have to surround yourself with the people where you want to be.
Hmm. Okay. Well, well, thank you for that answer.
There's a
I
beautiful book that I'd love for you all to read, and
Mm-hmm.
this is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
One of the chapters in the book is all around masterminds. Now, if y'all didn't
Think and grow.
know, right, and so in the 50s, or maybe even before that, Henry Ford, he had dropped out of school at eighth grade. He's like, "I'm not going to school." He just did the work.
Yeah.
He got so good at fixing the Westinghouse tractor at his grandfather's farm that Westinghouse hired him to be the lead technician.
Hmm.
So he got really good at that one thing, and then he was also hanging out with other entrepreneurs at that time, and he absorbed everything from them, and he was able
Hmm.
to create the Ford Motor Company, and the rest is history. So again, when you surround yourself with people in the right circles in the right places, you start exuding all of that. So put in good stuff comes out.
It's amazing. Like I also know about this like statistically they say if you put people around an overachiever, then efficiency in the workplace increases.
Hmm.
And if you surround people, the employees, by underachievers, then general efficiency just drops.
Yeah.
So you kind of it doesn't only apply to like an individual with their mentors, but also applies to colleagues in the workplace.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to see the influence of that. You know, it's like when someone has a high work ethic, how much that influences others.
Yeah. 100%. And because we are social animals, we learn from each other, right? We learn from each other,
Yeah.
and we're gonna take the least common denominator that's around us. Like, oh, he's doing this a little low class job. I'm gonna do the same thing.
but then there's always but then there's like still people that when they see someone is working like they have a high work ethic, they're working really hard, they might actually have like a counter reaction to it. Instead of being like, oh, I want to do the same, you're like,
Yeah.
why is this person working so hard? Why is this person making me look bad? You know?
Mm.
Yeah. So
And
then you try and attack them, like, hey, don't work so hard because I don't want to work hard.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's like, so how do we deal with those people like in the workplace?
Well, you have to ignore them or turn off their chats, and hey, I'm changing or change companies. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities out there. So you can't choose your family, but you
Hmm.
can
Yeah,
choose your friends.
That is
that is
true.
true.
And your
Yeah,
coworkers.
100%.
Um,
That's why I choose Ali.
Alhamdulillah.
Habibi. All right. So you do so many podcasts. How do you keep it fresh each time with each individual that you're interviewing?
Well, I
I'm sure
have
you've
a
asked so many
route.
questions. Yes.
Absolutely. So I have a routine where I do the research on the guest,
Hmm.
and prior to me recording the episode with them, I go through the research. I go through if they've written books, if they've done a lot of podcasts, if I understand who this person is, and some of the questions that I ask in the pre-form also give me that, because some of the questions are, hey, what's your favorite movie, or what's your favorite thing to do? Like, there's some question that I can remember, but that kind of helps me to say, okay, if they like this kind of movie, they're this kind of person, and
Hmm.
so it kind of reflects and tells me a little background on who they're going to be. I also do a pre-call. So before I even do the recording, I'll do a discovery call with them, talk to them on the phone, on the Zoom call, and
Mhm.
understand, hey, what are we going to get out of it? This is my flow. What do you think? So I get a little taste of who they are before I actually go into the recording. So for example, on Thursdays at 11, from 11 to 11:30, I do group discovery calls. So I have about 10 people come in the same room, and then we all talk and, introducing each other. I walk them through, hey, this is how my podcast flow is. Bring your best bet, because guess what? This is an evergreen product. This is an evergreen show
Hmm.
that's going to live on even after we're done. Our grandkids are going to be listening to you on the radio. So
Oh god.
I'm thinking from that perspective, right?
Ah. Hmm.
And
That's
the other thing that I'm
I haven't
doing
thought about
now,
that.
sorry,
I haven't thought about that.
right? I mean, if you think about it, because we are public media figures. We are public figures. We can literally get a media pass any event that's happening in the market, in the public. We can get a media pass because we are podcasters. So we are
Hell
putting
yeah.
information out that people can, receive. So what I'm doing the next step up. So I told them all of these things just so they know that they're in good hands, and that I'm gonna do everything that I can to help them shine, because that's why they coming on and being a guest on the podcast, because they want to get their message out. They want to get let the people know, hey, this is the kind of person they are. Hope that
Hmm.
Hmm.
helps. So because of that mission and me having that learning philosophy all the time, I
Yeah.
bring the best out of my guests the
I
best way I
kind of
know.
want to change the topic a bit, if that's okay.
Of
Going
course.
back to like the studio making and stuff. So when I look at your background, to be honest, the first thing that pops in my head is it's a gaming studio, like, and I want to ask first of all, are you a gamer by any chance?
Of course, I grew up a gamer, video
Hell
gamer.
yeah.
I used to play flight simulator games. I even invested like $3,500 on this flight simulator that got canceled because of COVID. But I was like, you know
Oh
what?
my.
It's kind of crazy. There's this guy, raising money to build this amazing, like this flight simulator looked amazing. Like you sit in the middle of it, you put on these VR goggles, and the whole thing rotates and moves up and down. So, anyways, I'm a huge gamer. I don't game anymore, but I have
Okay.
a huge affinity for film and Lego and Marvel. So that's why I have this Marvel poster over here,
Yeah.
and I've got the Iron Man poster back here, and I'm actually working on a full like 20-inch Iron Man action figure. So these colors are kind of like my brand colors. So when
Yeah.
people see this, they're like, "Hey, Junaid's coming on," or what's happening in the background over here.
Man, it's weird that you mentioned flight simulator because like I kind of want to understand what's this like going what's this theme that keeps going on with Arabs and like and Asians that they're always playing flight simulator. I mean, is it preparation for something again? Like, are we getting what's going
Well,
on?
you're generalizing, but a lot of people in the world love to fly. Like human beings, we just love to fly, right? And
Yeah,
to get the closest to flight, it was well, you learn how to fly a plane. And
that's true.
I'm trying to get my kids to get into flight. There's a program called STEM flights here in the U.S. where they teach you how to fly a plane for free if you're in middle school and high school.
Hmm. So,
So
do any of your kids thinking of like becoming pilots in the future?
I mean, I don't know about becoming a pilot because pilot has a job like a bus driver. They just fly from one place to. It's an overemphasized bus. If getting on Southwest, you're waiting in line to just get on the bus and find the first seat that you like, unless you pay for a higher flight like United or whatever, but you have assigned seating. Like whoa. But that's what it is because I know pilots. I
Yeah.
my One of my uncles is a pilot, and he's like, "Yo, it's crazy life. It's a crazy life because you're constantly flying people around. But to become a pilot, to have your own private plane, now that's a whole different ball game because you
Oh
can
yeah.
choose when to fly. You can choose to have that freedom. So having that kind of freedom and that kind of ability, takes you far.
All right. Fair. I
what what
Yeah. Go
what's
for
your
it.
favorite movie? I know you're talking about Marvel. Or is Marvel something you still really appreciate?
Oh yes, I do. I'm waiting for the next phase to start. It's taking them a while to get it started, but Iron Man is the first Iron Man movie has always been my favorite movie. I think before I watched Iron Man, it was The Matrix was my favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with the story and the hero arc, the hero's journey that you see in the person and who Iron Man becomes and how he continually grows throughout the entire arc till he actually, uh, dies for everybody in the end in the last
Yeah.
movie. You see the growth of the man, and if that doesn't inspire you, then it's like okay, you're not looking at it from another perspective. Another really favorite movie of mine, I guess you could say, is The Greatest Showman.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That was I mean, I cried throughout the movie because of the changes that the guy's, making, and then how he's growing from one stage to the next stage, and the hardships that you see. Because as entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
we see all of that and we relate to it. So it was really is really touching to me.
Yeah, the thing they have in common is that they're both entrepreneurs that are have a lot of skill or
Yeah,
intelligence or like power, charisma, but
yeah,
at first they're using it in not great ways. And then they
yeah,
have to learn how to harness their power
yeah.
for good.
Exactly. It's awesome.
Wow. And you relate to that.
Of course.
Yes. Same here. All right.
Yo,
So
Junaid, did you have like a dark past then? Is that
Did
what
I
we're
have a
getting at?
dark past? I wasn't a public speaker, I guess.
before now.
So
Before
and now,
now.
yeah, now that has changed. So now you have built up that charisma. Is that
Alhamdulillah. I mean,
what's
it
happening?
takes time, right? It takes time and effort and energy, and
Mm,
the reason the Prophet Muhammad was given the Nabuwa at age 40 was
yeah,
because you mature as a human being. You think from a
that's true.
totally different perspective. And my wife, who's gonna be turning 40 next year, she keeps telling me, she's like, I see the things so differently now. I'm like, yep, I know, because I'm much older than her, so I've kind of gone that down that path. And the reason I wanted to start my podcast, I was like, I'm going to be turning 42 this year. This is the answer. And if you've seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 42
Yeah.
is the ultimate answer, right? So I
Hmm.
was like, I've got to make something happen. And then the
Mm,
message came through Gary. I'm like, hey, just document your journey, just make it happen, do what you want to do. And now I do what I want to do. I'm writing 40 books by the end of next 4 years because of the
wow.
400 podcast episodes that I've interviewed. I'm converting these interviews, which is anywhere from 7,000 to 8,000 words, into a 1,500 word chapter. So it's
That's
boiled
amazing.
down. So that's
Yeah, you have
coming.
all.
That's something that I'm working on, that I've been thinking about for the past few years, and now I'm able to make it a reality. So alhamdulillah, it's been a lovely
Alhamdulillah.
journey.
Yeah. How beautiful. What
This
a
is the
beautiful
the
journey.
hadith of Junaid. That's what we're.
We're learning from you. What's
Alhamdulillah.
uh what's your mission? What's your grand mission with all these books and podcasts and everything you're doing now?
So I have four kids. My oldest is 14. My youngest is 2. Then I have 9 and 6-year-old in the middle. One of them is my daughter. The reason I'm doing all of this is to show them anything is possible if they put their mind to it. Because if they have something that they can mimic, if they have something that's touchable and ask the question, they can do it, then they're going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at some of the most prestigious people and people successful, they come from successful families. They come from families that are encouraging that kind of ability, right? So when you have encouragement, then you're able to go even farther. So that's my hope, that's my mission.
Hmm.
And then along the way, I'm teaching and I'm helping others, take from what I've learned, because I started from zero. I started from nothing. I didn't have none of this. But when you do the work, when you put the effort in, you start to see the fruits. You start to see the fruits of your labor. Funny story: when 2020 hit, we are all, at home, and
Mm-hmm.
my wife wanted to start a garden, and my cousin was starting a garden. It's like, hey, I'm going to start a garden. I'm like, sweet, awesome. I want to do it too. And then I'm like thinking, and I'm analyzing and doing all these things. And then 3 weeks later, he's like, dude, check it out. I've got some tomatoes. I've got some cucumbers. I'm like, what did you do? He's like, I got started. So I'm like, oh my God. So then I built my little thing, and
Yep.
I had my little farm, or a little
Wow.
thing.
It sounds so
That's the thing
wholesome
with
to say.
gardening.
Yeah.
You just have to get started. You
You
just
just
have to
got to get
plant those
started,
seeds.
man.
Plant that tree and it'll grow, but you have to plant it as soon as possible.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Wow, Said. So what did we learn today? Man, this was an episode.
Well, we learned about surrounding ourselves with the right people, asking the right questions, documenting our journeys. Basically, just improve the level and type of education you're receiving, because that will influence the type of person you are. And
Amazing.
we need to thank Junaid for coming onto the show and teaching us all of this. Junaid, really thank you for coming on, and please tell everyone how can they connect with you, and also just a follow up. Could you tell them to subscribe to us as well, please?
Of course. Of course, Saeed and Ali, thank you so much for this opportunity to share my journey, share my learnings, whatever they might be. It's all from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, nothing from me. And
Mhm.
please, guys, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to this podcast because these
Stay
guys
to the
are
show.
working really hard,
Yes.
and they're bringing the fire. If you want to learn more about me, you can head on over to hacksandhobbies.com. That's my podcast. If you want to learn more about the home studio stuff, you can actually get a free download of my book, homestudiobook.com. And if you want to find me on socials, just look up at Super Junaid.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right,
you so
Super
much, Junaid.
Junaid. We crushed it.
Guys,
Jazakallah
yes, we
khair.
have. This has been a great episode. Ali, it's great to see you again. Junaid,
Yes.
amazing to meet you. You guys know how we end this. We salute to cover the camera, Junaid. If you want, you can join us. And
Let's do it.
peace.
Out of here. Yeah.